Hello, I'm Holly Daniels. I'm a psychotherapist and meditation teacher, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about something called negative bias. Now, I've titled this blog, You Are Not Crazy, because I've had a few people come in to my practice recently and say to me, Holly, I'm crazy. I can't stop my brain. Holly, I had this horrible breakup 4 years ago, and I can't stop thinking about what went wrong or what I could have done differently or having conversations with my ex in my head, even though I've moved on and she's moved on and I'm fine, but I can't stop thinking about it. Or somebody will say, Holly, I made this really bad decision 3 years ago. It was an impulsive decision. People could have gotten hurt. Luckily, nobody did, but I can't stop thinking about why did I do that and what could have happened and imagining all of these scary things. And I can't stop my brain. I'm crazy, right? So if you can relate to this not being able to stop your brain from thinking about things that went wrong or worrying that something is going to go wrong right now or going to go wrong in the future, let me assure you, you are not crazy. In fact, your brain is working exactly as it should. Our brains have something called a negative bias. A negative bias refers to the tendency of our brains to focus on what went wrong, what caused us pain in the past, what might go wrong right now, what might happen that could cause us pain right now, and what could cause us pain in the future, and to be looking out for that and be constantly vigilant about that. Our brains function this way normally. This is their adaptive function, right? It's in place to keep us safe. I mean, imagine it's only been pretty recently in the course of human history, right, that life has been as safe as it is in the Western world. It wasn't that long ago when there really was a tiger or a bear lurking in the woods that could come out and eat us, or the neighboring tribe could sweep through and wipe out all of our loved ones. Unfortunately, life is still like this in some parts of the world. But it was relatively recently, even in the Western world, for life to be very, very dangerous, for real. And so our brains have adapted over thousands of years to look for danger. And when I say the brain, I'm mostly talking about the hindbrain, right? Our back primitive brain, which is the impetus for this looking out for danger, being always vigilant about what might cause us pain. And it's a very normal function of our brain. Now, especially if something really scary happened to you, if you experienced a trauma, which is something that really hurt you physically, emotionally, or otherwise, that you could not control, then your brain might even be on hyper alert. You might be experiencing in your body the event over and over again as you're trying to make sense of it and avoid the pain. You might be suffering from what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which I will explain and get into in another blog. But even if you've been through just the regular hurts of everyday life, your brain is functioning in this way from a negative bias, looking out for what might cause you pain right now, what might cause pain in the future, and rethinking and reliving what went wrong in the past to try to avoid that same pain again. Now, the problem is that in our modern world, right, life is actually relatively safe. We don't really need this negative bias function on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis. And in fact, it's really hurting us, right? It's keeping us from being present. This negative bias actually harms us in two specific ways. If we're spending all of our time thinking about what went wrong and what caused us pain, what could go wrong right now, being suspicious of people, wondering what's happening, and what might be going wrong in the future or could go wrong in the future. It keeps us from being present right now and enjoying our lives and enjoying the people around us and feeling good and safe and content. The other way that negative bias impedes our daily functioning here and now is that it makes us depressed and anxious, right? If we're spending all of our time worrying about what went wrong, what's going to go wrong now, the negative bias also fears the unknown, right? Which makes sense. Anything that's unknown or unfamiliar is automatically categorized as might be scary, so let's not go there. And so every, thing in our lives starts to look suspicious and look scary, and we're always on the lookout for what might go wrong and what might cause us pain, and it brings us a lot of anxiety to go through life that way, and it makes us depressed. It makes us look at the world through a very negative light and feel uncomfortable about the world and our place in it. Right? So we really need to deal with this negative bias in our modern everyday lives in order to have happy, healthy, productive lives. So how do we do this? Well, first, we just want to notice the negative bias. We just want to kind of get in touch with ourselves, get in touch with our brains, and notice what is happening and not judge it, right? And this is where meditation and mindful practices come in. We just want to look at what's going on with our functioning, right? And not take it personally, not judge it. Just as our hearts beat, our lungs breathe, our brains are going to think, and they're going to look out for danger. That's their job, right? That's the biological functioning of the brain. And so to not judge yourself for having all of these negative thoughts, and definitely don't beat yourself up for having all of these negative thoughts, because you'll just be adding fuel to the negative fire. Right? So if we do sit in mindfulness, if we do start to notice, wow, I do spend a lot of time thinking about what went wrong, what might go wrong, don't say, oh, what's wrong with me? I can't stop my brain. Oh, I'm so stupid. No matter what I try, I can't stop these thoughts. I must be going crazy. No, if we add that judgment, we are just adding fuel to the negative fire. So the first piece of dealing with this negative bias is just to notice it. Notice your thought process. Notice how your thoughts affect your body and your emotions. Remember that your brain is not just a lump in your head. Your brain actually extends through your entire body, right? Your nervous system and the neurons go all the way to your tippy toes. So the way your brain is thinking and perceiving the world is affecting your whole system, your whole way of being. So first, just notice it. And then we want to compassionately talk back to our brains, right? We want to say, hey, brain, I've noticed that you're having a lot of negative thoughts. And you know what? I don't think that's helping. I feel pretty safe. I'm okay in the here and now, and we don't need to have all of those negative thoughts anymore. And talk to our brains, kind of talk them back from the ledge. And a lot of people say to me, Holly, that makes no sense. How do I talk to my brain when I use my brain to talk? And so I just want to explain what I mean by that. First, I mean using different parts of our brain to interact with each other in different ways. So we want to use the frontal brain, our prefrontal cortex, which is our grown-up, wise brain, our reasoning brain, to talk to our primitive brain, which is the impetus of this negative bias. We better look out for danger. We better be careful all the time. So when the hind brain sends a message to the prefrontal brain, hey, we better start worrying again about the breakup 4 years ago. We better think about that because that was really painful and we don't want to have any more pain like that again. So, we better start thinking again about that event 4 years ago. We want our prefrontal cortex to look backwards and talk to our hindbrain and say, you know what? Thank you, hindbrain, for wanting to keep us safe and keep us from pain. But you know what? That happened 4 years ago. It's over. I learned the lessons I'm going to learn from that experience, and we don't need to think about that anymore. So we're just going to let those thoughts and those worries simply drift away. We don't need those anymore. So that's one way I mean allow your brain, talk to your brain. The other thing I'm talking about is the energetic reality of our beingness, right? Which is bigger than the functioning of our brain. We are synergistic beings, which means that our whole is greater than the sum of our parts. There is an energetic reality to who we are, whether you call that the spirit or the self, the connection to the universe, whatever you want to call it. There is definitely a beingness that is beyond the function of the brain, right? Our brains are thinking and looking out for danger. Our hearts are beating. Our lungs are breathing. Our muscles and our bones are moving. But there is an energetic reality, a capital S self, I would call it, that is bigger than the function of all of those organs and can talk to the function of the brain, right? So those are two different ways of looking at how do we talk back to our brains. And help them to calm down and to see that we are safe and we are okay. The other way to deal with negative bias, and this is a very important piece, is that we actually have to practice focusing on feeling good. We have to create and maintain ways of being in our everyday lives that feel safe and comforting and good. And then we have to practice feeling good. A lot of people say to me when they start this process, Holly, I am panicked. I'm so scared because I just realized I can't be happy. Even when I'm noticing what's going right, I can't hold on to it. I can't attach to it. When something good happens to me, I can't believe it, or I can't really experience it because something in my brain says to me, oh, be careful. You know, that can't really be true. We better be suspicious of that event or that circumstance. And let me explain to you exactly what's happening in that moment if you've had this experience yourself. As I said, the brain is suspicious of the unknown, and the brain categorizes unknown uncertainty as potentially bad, and so it wants to discard or worry about those things happening. So if you are not accustomed to feeling good, if you are not used to feeling happy and feeling safe and feeling joy in the world, then when you have those positive feelings, your brain is actually going to register that as unknown and therefore potentially dangerous. All right, does this make sense? So when you are actually experiencing a positive emotion or a positive event, if you're not used to it, your negative bias is actually going to be triggered because it's an unknown feeling. And your negative bias is going to say, that's potentially dangerous, we're not going to go there. And so what we have to do is actually practice feeling good. We need to make feeling good no longer an unknown. One of the first ways I tell people to do this is to create a gratitude list. Wake up in the morning and write down what is going right in your life. And some people have trouble with this. I say just start with the basic needs. Do you have clothes on your body? Is there some food to eat for breakfast? Do you have a roof over your head? Awesome. Those are good things. A lot of people in the world don't have all of those things, right? So start there. Write down who you love, animals that you love in your life, people and animals who bring you love, and focus on what is going well. And then be with that list. Really absorb it. See if you can feel in your body how it is to feel happy and content, to be grateful, to feel good. And we need to practice those feelings so that they are no longer unknown feelings, so that your brain doesn't fight them anymore. What we're going to do eventually is work toward creating a positive bias in your brain. Imagine having an outlook in which you are always on the lookout for what's going well and what feels good and who in your life is bringing you joy, right? And I'm going to talk more about creating that positive bias in a future blog. But until then, check in with yourself. Just notice how you're thinking and what you're thinking and see if you can practice feeling good, feeling content, and feeling happy. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm Holly Daniels. May inner peace be with you.